Hey folks, welcome. This is Emily and this is Gently Chaotic Knits, and I normally say that differently, but my name is Emily and I live in Seattle, Washington with my husband Nomphis and our pup Norman, and this channel is Gently Chaotic Knits, and I'm normally here chatting with you all about stuff I'm knitting and a variety of other things. I normally do like a pretty regular just video podcast episode, so I talk about what I've been making, and most of that is knitting, but sometimes I will talk about some other crafting as well. And it's been a little bit since I've done a regular podcast episode. My last couple videos have been a little bit different. I did a summary of all the garments that I made in 2022. So I will link that below, as well as also in the video, hopefully, if I can remember to do that. And then my last video was a just kind of summary of my goals from 2022, a reflection on how that went, and also I talked a little bit about my goals for the upcoming year, 2023, which we are already like almost done with January, and I cannot believe that. So talked about my goals for this year, as well as I went through all my sweater quantities that I have in my stash and some plans that I have for them. And some of those plans have already changed and morphed, and I'm really excited about it. So I've got a ton of stuff to talk about today. I have a ton of stuff on my mind. I try to make notes of the stuff that I could remember. I'm hoping that I have everything within arm's reach, because I may have to run and grab some stuff if I forgot it. But there's a lot to talk about, so I'm really just gonna go into it. It is Tuesday, January 24th, and I think this is my first episode in like normal sit-down podcast episode in like 6 weeks. So I have a lot to talk about, and honestly, I have fewer finished objects than you might hope over that time period. But I do have one really big finished object that I'm really excited to share, and I talked about a little bit on my last couple videos, but I didn't go through it in detail. So I'm gonna go through it in detail here. This is my striped sweater by Andrea Mowry. And you know what? I'm realizing that I should have worn it, but maybe I'll just toss it on top. I don't know how it'll look on top of this shirt, but we will put it on and see. But anyway, this project I started around the beginning of December, and then I finished it a couple weeks ago actually. So it's been finished for a while, but I just hadn't recorded, hadn't gotten a chance to show it to all of you yet. It's a little, because I have a shirt on underneath, that's a little tight, like in the arms, but I am really, really happy with it. So there it is. It's a little tight right now and like funky because I have a shirt on underneath, and it's got quite, like, it's got some negative ease actually on the sleeves, like on the arms, but it's still plus maybe 3 or 4 inches of ease around the bust. Love the way it fits. I really, really love this sweater. So let me just take a step back and talk to you all about it. So this, again, the pattern is the Stripes by Andrea Mowry. I did make quite a few modifications, and I'll get into those in a minute, but the yarn is the 2022 Stress Knits Advent calendar. So I think it was called Planty Holidays. And this is, unfortunately, Stacy has said this is the last Advent she will ever do. I'm so, so glad that I grabbed this Advent, because I am so in love with these colors. I feel like it was perfect for this project. Knitting it, opening the yarn was an absolute delight. Like, I cannot tell you how much I loved the process of this knit and of the of opening the yarn every day. I am very much like, I'm the person that really, really enjoys Advent calendars and like just like little gifts and like little bits of joy to open each day. That I am the intended audience for those kinds of things. So I got the Advent calendar. I decided, I had originally, like, there's a whole process. I think I talked about this in one of my Vlogmas episodes, so you can go back and hear more about like the tumult that was getting to this pattern decision. But I ended up, I actually started knitting a different pattern, and then I didn't end up loving it, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this one instead. And so I think it was actually like December 3rd or 4th that I actually cast this on. The collar, like all the ribbing, is actually not from the calendar. It's a skein of Woolberry Fiber Co. Berry Natural, and I believe the colorway is Swan Lake, but I just thought it would go really well with these colors. At that point I had only opened like the first 3 or 4, but I thought this neutral would go really well with the palette, and I think it was a great choice. So I ended up deciding to do stripes, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, like I mentioned, and I did make quite a few modifications, so let me go through those. The collar, actually, she offers 2 options for how to do the collar. One option is to just go ahead and cast on right here for the first stripe and then knit the sweater and then go back and pick up around the neckline and then knit the collar and fold it over and seam it down. The other option she offered was to cast on the collar, knit the collar, and then, or I think she said, I think the other option was to do a provisional cast on. So do a provisional cast on for the collar, knit the collar, fold it over, and knit the live stitches from the beginning with the live stitches that you just knit, and like fold it over that way and then go into the stripes. What I actually did was I did not do a provisional cast on. I just did a normal long tail cast on for the collar, knit the collar, and then I went into the stripes like normal, and then after a little bit I actually then folded over and I sewed down the collar on the inside that way. So it gave it a little bit more structure than if I had just done the provisional cast on, but I also did not want to pick up the stitches as well, so I think seaming it down gave it a little more like a structure, so it's not just like all the way wide out here. And I really love the way that it turned out. The other modifications I made, the primary modification that folks will notice is that my stripes are skinnier than the stripes in the pattern, and that is because I decreased the number of rows per stripe. So the pattern calls for 8 rows per stripe, and I did 5 rows per stripe. And the sole reason for that is because I wanted to get through all 24 colors of the Advent in the body of the sweater. And then of course I had to repeat colors for the sleeves because the sleeves are longer than the body, but I wanted to get through all the colors in the body of the sweater. So I did some math and figured out that I could do 5 rows per stripe and it would work out perfectly to be the exact same length as I think she did 13 8-row stripes. And then I did 24 5-row stripes and the math worked out. It may not be 13, whatever the number is that makes those maths work out. So that was one other big modification, and then the other one is I actually, well, I guess there are a couple others, and I outlined all of these in my Ravelry project page as well, so like if you want to go and check that out, you can. I have my Ravelry information below in the description box as well, so you can find that and go to my page and you can see all the information about the changes that I made there. But I did also leave out one of the short rows on the back. So there are short rows in the back to make the back of the sweater a little bit longer. And I left out one because it would have resulted in some like uneven stripes on the back, like 2 thick ones and then a thin one and then a thick one, and like I didn't want to do that. And then the other thing I did is that because this is a circular yoke, there are rounds where you do increases, and I moved the increase rounds just a little bit so that they were not on the edge of a stripe, because the increases that Andrea Mowry uses for this pattern are lifted increases, and that means that I would have been pulling from like one color up into another color, and that like line between the 2 colors would have been kind of like funky. So I made sure that I was doing the increases kind of in the middle of a stripe rather than on the edge, so that you wouldn't be able to see the increases as well, like between the stripe colors. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'm not sure if any of that made sense. If you have questions about it, if you're gonna make your own or something, like feel free to like send me a message or an email or whatever. I'd be happy to chat about it. But that is what I did. So those are the modifications that I made. I made a size 2, I believe. And I'm not sure, I don't remember if my gauge was on or not. I think my gauge was actually pretty close. And I ended up actually for the body using a US size 4 needle, which I believe is what the pattern called for. And then I did a US size 3 for the ribbing on the neck and also on the sleeves, but I stuck with the US size 4 ribbing on the body because I did not want the ribbing at the bottom to kind of cinch in. I wanted it to stay roughly the same kind of like circumference here. I wanted it to be like a little bit, not really flowy at the bottom, but I didn't want it to do like, you know, the little cinch at the bottom. I didn't want it to be kind of like poofy, if that makes sense. So I stayed at a US size 4 for the bottom ribbing as well. And otherwise, that's it. I mean, that is the pattern. I really, really love the way the colors turned out. I did make a couple of switches. My intent originally was to just open the advent in order and knit it into the sweater in order, and I did end up making a couple of like very minor color order changes, and that is just because of my personal preference. That is just because I really wanted, like, I didn't want the two stripes next to each other that had too low contrast. I wanted to make sure that you could see each of the individual stripes, and I think it resulted in like a really great sweater. I think yeah, I don't think I could love it more. I really, really love it. It's really fun. I took some really beautiful pictures of it and shared those online, like on Instagram, and I can put a picture up here as well. I mean, you guys are seeing it like not in person, but you're seeing it on me now. So I guess I probably don't need to do that, but I'll put up a picture as well if you want to see what it looks like. And that's it. I mean, that's stripes. I finished it technically in January, so I am counting this as a 2023 finished garment. And for those of you that watched my goals video, that means this is my first finished sweater of 2023. So that means if I finish one more, then I'm allowed to purchase a sweater quantity of yarn, allowing myself. So I have another sweater in the works. And once I finish that one, then I'll be free to buy another sweater quantity if I want to. But yeah, this one was really fun to work on, and it was so fun that I think I'm going to be knitting an advent project probably every year forever, because I loved it. I just really, really loved opening the yarn each day, working it into the project. It was just really, really fun. So I think I will probably be doing this again this year. Not sure what advent I'll get because I can't get stress knits again. So I'll have to think about that. But yeah, that's stripes. Okay. Wait, sorry, I got freaked out that my camera stopped recording, but I think it's still good. Okay. Okay, and then I have a couple of half-finished objects, kind of. I'm gonna put my other sweater back on because it's a little warmer and I'm kind of cold. And I guess I can tell you all also what my other sweater is, because I don't think I've worn it on here in a while. The other sweater that I'm wearing today is my Vega jacket. Wow, my mouth just like really messed up those words. My Vega jacket. And I don't remember the designer who it's by. But I will link it below, of course. And this is my first experience with intarsia, and I love the way the shoulders look. This one is a really, really warm one, and I wear it basically like a jacket. I really wish it had pockets. Maybe that's something I should add, like a couple of patch pockets, honestly. Yes, I should add patch pockets to this. Like, that would be perfect. Because I wear it like a jacket and I miss having pockets. Like, I wore it out. If it's not gonna rain here, which is a big if because I live in Seattle, but if it's not gonna rain, I'll just wear this as my jacket instead of wearing like my other kind of big jacket. And so I tossed it on this morning. I had an appointment this morning that I just wore this to, and it's really nice and warm. I knit it out of Alafosslopi, which is some really beautiful Icelandic wool that I actually got in Iceland on my honeymoon with my husband. So it's very special to me for that reason as well. But I really love this jacket. I think it's really nice and cozy, but also cute. And the intarsia, really fun. Okay, what was I gonna do next? Half-finished objects. I have a couple half-finished objects. Okay. remember all the stuff I talked about in the last episode, so I don't know like if you all remember what things I was knitting at the time, but there are some things that I was knitting that I'm no longer knitting. So I had cast on and was doing some work. I think I actually still have it on some waste yarn, but I had been working on the Sorry Nordland mystery socks, and here's just the toe, and like they are really cute. And I'll probably just leave them on this waste yarn so that if I ever get inspired to go back and finish them, I will, but I've definitely stalled out on that, and like I am considering it an abandoned project at this point, and I'm not considering it a whip. I mean, it's really beautiful. Like, these are the Lucia, sorry, I didn't say what these actually are. These are the Lucia socks by Sorry Nordland, and it was a mystery knit along that she was doing in the month of December that I cast on, and then I just had a ton of other stuff that I was loving. Like I was knitting on the striped sweater, and I had like other socks I was working on. So they did not, and they like took quite a bit of like attention. I mean, it's lace and cables and twisted stitches everywhere, so they did not get the attention that they needed, and then I kind of abandoned them. So I'm not really knitting those anymore, but I have some other socks I was working on. So I believe I talked about the Totally Rad ribbed socks. This is a pair of socks that I cast on when we were in Mexico in November, and over the holidays I did finish the first sock. So this is a pattern by Summerly Knits, and I am using a sock set that we had at La Mercerie as part of the Winter Wishes sock set update and Winter Wishes sock swap sock set update. That was kind of a tongue twister, but this set was from the Yarn Baker, which is a really lovely yarn dyer. She does some really amazing work, and I got a couple of her sock sets, but one that she did for us, but one of them is this one. It's she titled it Heavy on the Cinnamon, and she did the main color is this beautiful rich like tonal red, but the contrast color is actually this little kind of tan one here, and it is the variegated. So rather than normally I feel like with sock sets you see the main color is variegated and the contrast like color, the little mini, is a tonal or like a solid color, but for this one she did the mini as variegated, and it's this like really fun like speckledy color, and I can show it to you in the stripes. Also just a moment of triumph for how well this camera focuses. It's incredible. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But yeah, speckled stripes from the mini, and then I also did the toe in the mini, and then the sock or the heel of the sock I did in this green. This is a La Bien-Aimée color. I believe the color is called Yana, but just to give it a little bit of extra like holiday vibe. And these are socks that I am making a matching set of socks with Jess from La Mercerie to commemorate our first sock swap that we did together, that we kind of worked on together. So if you don't know what that is, I'm not explaining it here very well. I forgot to do that, but I will say quickly that La Mercerie, the yarn store that I work at, we do a sock swap every winter so that we basically pair up folks around the world to send packages with sock yarn to each other, so that they can like chat with each other about what they like and then send really thoughtful and sweet packages to each other, and it's really, really fun. But it is kind of like a logistical, it is a big logistical job to do that, and so Jess and I worked on it together this year, and so we're knitting matching socks to commemorate that. So I have my first one done, and I have not yet cast on the second. So that's my first, well, I say it's done. I still have to fold over this part. So the pattern has a couple of different options. There are 2 options for how to do the top, and then there are also 2 options for how to do the heel. I did just a basic slip stitch, heel flap and gusset for the heel. And for the top, rather than doing like a ribbed cuff, I did the fold over, but I have not actually folded it over and sewn it down yet, but I need to do that. And then also I think as far as sizing goes, I knit the size small. I always have to knit smallest size for socks. My sock gauge, or like my small, I think also just my knitting gauge in general is pretty loose, but especially my small circumference knitting gauge. So I have to do as few stitches as possible for my socks. And then I also knit it on a US size 0 needle. So that's, excuse me, one finished object, and then, or half finished object rather, and then y'all will have to help me decide whether this counts as a half finished object or not. I guess it kind of doesn't, but we'll just do this as a transition into the works in progress anyway. But I cast on, for my Christmas Eve cast on this year, some really beautiful self-striping socks. And here is the first one, which I have finished with the exception of the heel. So my plan is to do an afterthought heel, a true afterthought. So I've done a forethought afterthought heel before, which means that, okay, I guess I should step back. I cast these on at the cuff, 56 stitches, US size 0 needles, and then just knit the tube. And if you want to do an afterthought heel, you can just knit in one little like stripe of some waste yarn, just like knit in a little bit of waste yarn where you want to put the heel in. And then when it's time to go back and put the heel in, you can just pull the waste yarn out and get your stitches back on the needle and then do your heel that way. And if you're unfamiliar with what an afterthought heel is, I'm realizing that I didn't really talk about that either. Basically, like, you can see this is a sock tube. It has a cuff and it has a toe, but it doesn't have a heel. So an afterthought heel means that you're basically just gonna go in and put your heel in afterward. And there are, I think, a couple of different techniques that you can use for an afterthought heel. It's normally just like a short row heel. And you can read about that as well. There are tons of different techniques for this, but you basically just like cut open your sock where you wanna put the heel in, pick up the live stitches where you cut, and then you do like a little, it's basically like another toe that you just put where you want your heel, and then you're done. And like Kitchener the end of it to seam it up nicely, and then that's it. That's your sock. So to make sure that I got this yarn, I haven't even talked about the yarn yet. This is the colorway Knitmas from Nomadic yarns, and it's a lovely, beautiful self-striping yarn. And I actually wound this up myself into this beautiful gobstopper ball. Let me just show you that. Oh my gosh. It's beautiful. Like, how is that so beautiful? But, my friend Maya and I had decided that we wanted to do, for our Christmas Eve cast on this year, we were gonna do self-striping socks, and then Jess and her friend Jess and me as well, we're doing self-striping socks for Christmas Eve cast on. It was really fun to chat with everyone about it, but this is a 100 gram skein that I got, and I'm only gonna end up using about half of it. And so I was like, okay, Maya was mentioning she might only use half of her colorway that she got as well, and then we could swap, and next year we could do, like, she could use the rest of this to make a pair of socks, and then I could use the rest of hers to make a pair of socks. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that I had at least 50 grams left for Maya, so I decided that I was just gonna go ahead and do the sock tube, and make sure, like, for each tube I only use like 25 grams of yarn at most, and then that'll make sure that I leave 50 grams for her. And then I can go put the heel in later, wherever it works out is the best place for my foot. So I knit the first one, I cast it on Christmas Eve, and then I finished it, I don't remember when, like early January. And then I just like a couple days ago cast on, well, I had cast on a while ago, but I hadn't really even finished the cuff until like a couple days ago. But then I started actually cruising on, this is kind of tangled, the second sock. I can try to untangle this, maybe. It's kind of a mess. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to get that completely untangled right now, but this is the second sock, so I have quite a ways to go. You can see I have like quite a bit left. I'm maybe like halfway roughly. And then I'll put the toe in, and then I have to go in and I'm gonna just do both of the heels at the same time. So I'll finish this one, I'll make it into a full sock tube first, and then I'll go in and I'll put the heels in both. But this is just a really fun Christmas project. I feel like the colorway is really, really fun and was like really enjoyable to knit around that time of year. The only thing is like I'm not really feeling a ton of Christmas spirit right now that I'm knitting these socks, and I probably won't wear them again until like next Christmas, but I definitely want to finish them by the end of January because I do not want to be knitting Christmas socks much later in the year than that. Like I feel like January is fine, but then after that, done. No Christmas knits until like next fall. Well, I don't know. I would probably knit Christmas things earlier, but that's not what I'm feeling the energy for it the most, you know, because Christmas is already done. So those are a couple of my sock projects that I've been working on. I need to mark off like what I've talked about. I talked about this, I talked about this, I talked about this. Okay, I have a couple of other works in progress to share with you. One is a work in progress that I cast on a long time ago and I talked about briefly on the podcast, and then I kind of forgot about it. Like I just hadn't worked on it in a really long time, and I picked it up a couple days ago and I've been working on it again. So I thought I would show you just as a reminder that like, hey, this exists. But I cast on a Harlow hat, which is another pattern by Andrea Mowry. It's just a simple 2-color brioche hat, and I think she uses Spincycle for her version, at least for one of the colors, but I'm using Spincycle for both. And if you're unfamiliar with what Spincycle is, it's a really, really fun yarn. They have a couple of different yarn lines and like yarn weights, but I think their most popular or like characteristic are Dyed in the Wool and Dream State, which are a sport and worsted weight yarn that emulate kind of the style of yarn you get when you spin it. You're like when you hand spin yarn, and it has that really slow color change over the course of the skein with really fun marls in it as well. And it's just a really fun yarn to work with. And this is my first ever project with Spincycle yarn. I'm using Dyed in the Wool, which is their sport weight yarn. And like I mentioned, I'm knitting the Harlow hat. I believe it looks here, I'm knitting the size medium. I don't know how many sizes there are. Like I don't know how close to the bottom that is. And I'm using a US 2.5 needle. I think that is a smaller needle than the pattern called for, but as I previously mentioned, I think I am a little bit of a loose knitter, so I have to often go down in needle size. But the colors I picked, I got these at Northwest Yarns in Bellingham like a while ago, I think during the Puget Sound yarn crawl, which was, I went to, I guess, was it last year or the year before? I don't remember exactly when. But the 2 colors I'm using are Leith and Summer Love. And Leith is more of like, it's not as much of a slower color changing one. It's basically just a marl between these two, like really dark teal and pretty dark teal. So like you can tell it's marled, but it's not like super obvious. It's like kind of subtle. So I love that one. And then Summer Love is one of the slower color changing ones. You can see how it like changes throughout the skein. Right now I'm in like a yellow and blue section, and then I'm gonna go into this like cream and blue section. But there is like a main color and a contrast color. There's like a front color and a back color. So this is what the like Leith side looks like. And then I'll just kind of flip it so that you can see a little bit that this is what the Summer Love side looks like on the inside. But it's really fun. I feel like these 2 colors go really well together. I've been really, really loving dark teal recently, which like I always love dark teal, but I feel like even more recently. I'm gonna just knit on this while we talk about it because I'm really feeling the itch, like just holding it. I'm like, oh, I want to work on this. And like 2-color brioche is just, I don't know, it's really fun to knit and really satisfying, and I feel like it has a really good rhythm to it. Oh, I'm to the point where I need to change colors, so I have to actually look at it for a second. Sorry, I probably should focus on actually talking about my knitting rather than just sitting here and knitting. But anyway, I haven't worked a ton on it, but I went with my coworkers at La Mercerie. We went to the Spincycle store in Bellingham this last weekend, which I will probably talk about a little more at the end of the episode, as I tend to do, just like talk about general life stuff and other stuff that I've been up to. But that morning I was like, ooh, I forgot about this project. Maybe I'll toss it in my bag to work on, because I'll be feeling excited about the Spincycle yarn, and like maybe I'll be inspired to work on it. And I feel like that definitely happened, and I'm feeling a desire to work on this project now. So I also have, like, the sweater I'm working on right now is a much larger project. It's like gotten to the size where it's kind of hard to take around with me. So this is a good project to just kind of like toss in my bag, or the sock project as well. So anyway, that is the Harlow hat. And then my last work in progress, knitting wise, is a sweater for my mom. So, sorry, I just saw my tapestry needle fall out of its little case here, so I'm gonna tuck it back in. So I've mentioned this, I feel like, a million times before, so if you're tired of hearing me talk about this, I'm very sorry. But I am planning to knit dad sweaters, which is a pattern by me that I published back in November. And it's based off of these sweaters that my dad still wears. And I am planning to knit them for my whole family, for my whole immediate family. So I already knit one for my dad, I knit one for myself, and now I'm knitting them for my mom and my brother and sister, and I am also probably gonna knit one for my husband as well, because I want to knit him a sweater this year, and I also want it to be a dad sweater so that he can like match all of us, and I also want to wear it myself. So I'm probably gonna knit him one too. So I've got lots of dad sweater plans this year. But first up is my mom's. I'm tentatively trying to finish these as birthday gifts for my family this year, and my mom's birthday is up first. Her birthday is March 20th, and so I'm hoping to finish this by then. I'm certain that I will, because I have like 2 months before then, and I've already made really good progress. But here it is, let me show you. This is my mom's dad sweater, and I am knitting for her actually. Okay, well, first I'll tell you about the yarn, because that kind of affects my sizing as well. I am using for this Gilliatt from Rerum Natura, which is a yarn we carry at La Mercerie. That's where I got this yarn. It is a lovely yarn. I really love working with this yarn, so highly recommend if you're interested in giving it a try. If you haven't worked with this yarn before, I definitely recommend it. It is a 100% wool. It's really nice and light, but it's also really nice and soft. It's not too rustic, but it still has that kind of like woolly feel. Altogether, a really great yarn. It is a worsted weight yarn, and the pattern that I wrote uses Corey worsted, which they call it Corey worsted, so you would think worsted weight yarn, but I think that that yarn is much closer to a DK weight yarn. So my gauge was pretty different when knitting with Gilliatt versus the Corey worsted, and my gauge was actually off in the perfect amount so that I would be able to knit a size 3 for my mom and get the measurements of a size 4. So I had to make a couple of modifications in the like the top part of the sweater, because my row gauge wasn't like perfectly off in the right way. So I did have to extend the top part of the sweater before doing the armhole increases. I don't know if this makes sense to anyone, but I had to extend that a little bit so that the armholes weren't up too high. And I also, my mom is a person who doesn't love to have the neckline of a sweater right up, like touching her neck. So I did also lower the collar, like the neckline of the sweater a little bit, so she'll have a little bit of room between her neck and like the bottom of the collar. So anyway, I made those modifications. I joined in the round. You can see this is the bottom of the armhole, and I have knit like roughly 8 inches since then. and I need to go until the body is 13 inches long, and then I'll do the sleeves and the collar, and then I'll be done. So I was like tentatively, like really tentatively hoping that I could finish this sweater by the end of January, but I don't think that that will happen. The sleeves for this sweater are really large, so I really doubt I'll finish this by the end of January. But I think I'll finish it in the first couple of weeks of February, and that will give me plenty of time before her birthday to give it to her. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. There is like a broad shoulder and a standard shoulder like group of sizes for this pattern, and my mom requested the broad shoulder, so I'm knitting her the broad shoulder size 3, but kind of like broad shoulder size 4 is what it will turn out like. And the pattern also, I believe, calls for a US size 6 needle. I should know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure it calls for a US size 6 needle, and I'm using a US size 5 on this, I think. Or does it call for a 5? You know what? I don't actually know, because it's been a while since I knit it with the La Bien-Aimée yarn. I've been working on this one for a while. I'm very confident I'm using a US size 5 for this one. And yeah, the pattern calls for a US size 6. So I did go down a needle size as well to get closer to gauge to account for the heavier yarn. And yeah, so it's making like a little bit of a denser fabric, I would say, than the original, but I still think it'll be really nice. But it'll be a little bit different than the original. The primary reason I'm using this yarn rather than the Corey worsted for my mom is that she prefers yarn that doesn't have that kind of like scratch or like itch factor. And Corey worsted I wouldn't say is super itchy, but it does have a little bit of that itchiness. So I think this one will be better for her. And that is all of my works in progress, or at least my knitting works in progress, which is a good segue to I have some other crafts I've been working on recently as well, and I'm excited to tell you about those. So first up, in my goal video, I talked a little bit about my spinning, and I wanted to show it with you all here as well. And I think I've done a little bit of spinning since I showed it in that video, but basically I decided it's time for me to learn how to spin yarn. And I'd been kind of holding off on it for a while because honestly I was nervous that I would love it too much and I would get too obsessed with it and I would not have as much time for my other hobbies, which is silly because if I become obsessed with something and I love it, then like that's great. I can spend time doing something that I love. Like why would I hold myself back from that? But I was nervous, like I already feel like I don't have enough time to do all the knitting I wanted to do, so I was like, okay Emily, like just wait until you have more time. And then I was like, there's never gonna be a moment when I'm like, okay, everything's free, like I don't have anything else I want to be doing, so now's the time to start spinning. Like I realized that that was just never gonna happen. And so after some encouragement from my friend Maya, who started spinning last year, and like just the yarn and the projects that she's made with it are so beautiful, and so I was like, I can do it, like I'm gonna try. So I decided this is the year I'm gonna try to spin. So I signed up for a class. My end goal, my objective is to learn to spin on a wheel. Like I would like to do wheel spinning more than I would like to do drop spindle spinning. So I signed up for a class at Northwest Yarns up in Bellingham, and my class is in less than 2 weeks now. My first class is February 5th, and I'm really, really excited about it. I am gonna go and like rent a wheel, and I'm gonna learn how to spin on the wheel. And I'm really nervous because I don't want to be bad at it, but I am like, I don't know, I'm just excited and I'm nervous and everything. But before the class, Maya had recommended to me that I practice drafting on a drop spindle first, because that'll give me good like practice with the hand motion and would help me pick it up on the wheel a little bit faster. So she lent me her drop spindle, which is beautiful, by the way, also. This is the top of it, and this is what it looks like. And so she lent me her drop spindle, and I have been practicing a little bit every couple days on the drop spindle. And you can see, like, yeah, it's very thick and thin, and it's not like amazing, but I'm doing it. Like, I feel like I'm doing it, and each time I do it, I feel like I'm getting better at it. And it's becoming more natural and more comfortable. And like the first couple times I did it, my body was so tense that like I could not do it for longer than an hour. Otherwise my body was just like so tight that it was so uncomfortable and I just could not do it. So I have slowly gotten to the point where I don't feel like I'm like all my muscles are contracting. Like I'm much more relaxed when I do it now. And I think I'm getting better. Like I was saying, my yarn is still really thick and thin, but I think the thick parts are less thick than they were before, and the thin parts are less thin than they were before. So like it's getting a little bit better. And I think I'm just also understanding a lot more about like what to do with my hands to make it like go better or whatever. Like I'm learning about staple length and all kinds of things. So if you're not interested in spinning, I'm sorry for like talking about it here, but I am excited about it. And so I will probably share about my experiences as I go to the class and like get a wheel to rent and start trying more yarn. But the fiber that I have here is a BFL from Wee Chickadee, and it's just an Etsy shop that I ordered this fiber from. The colorway is called Wayfarer, I think, and I just, again, was like, ooh, dark teal, this is what I want. And I love the, like, there are these peachy bits too, which I really love. Like, this is kind of one of those peachy bits, so yeah. I'm really enjoying it so far, but I'm also ready to be done with the drop spindle and move on to the wheel because I feel like that will be more enjoyable. But anyway, that's the spinning. And the other craft I've done a little bit of, and I have, to be fair, I have not done this actually in weeks. I haven't worked on it since I left Oklahoma, I don't think. But my sister-in-law started cross-stitching last year, and when I saw her when we were visiting family back in Oklahoma, she was finishing up this beautiful cross stitch of the Grand Canyon, and it was so beautiful. And she told me that she got this pattern online. It was from an Etsy seller, and I'll include the Etsy seller below, that was 12 different national park cross stitch patterns, and she's planning to just like work her way through all of them. So she finished the Grand Canyon one, and then I was like, I want to do this too. And then my sister actually ended up doing it as well. And so all three of us went and got the supplies for it. And I almost said cast on. I don't know what the word is for cross stitch. But now I am working on a little national parks cross stitch. And this looks like nothing right now because you don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I will show it to you so you can see what it looks like now, and then we can track my progress over time. But this one is for Glacier National Park. And so all three of us started Glacier National Park, and my sister-in-law actually finished hers already. She sent us a picture of it yesterday, and it's done and it's beautiful. I am much, much slower because I spend all of my free time knitting instead of cross stitching. So I have not worked on this in weeks, but I really want to get back to it because I love the idea of having all these like really cute national park cross stitches in our home. My sister-in-law was talking about like framing them and putting them up in her house, which I might want to do as well. And my sister, Hannah, has also made a lot more progress than I have. I'm slow, I guess, because I spend my time on other crafts as well. But I had to add another craft. it was just too fun. It seemed too fun to not, and like doing it with them was really fun. So I started cross stitching. But it's fun. So I'll put a picture up, or maybe I already have put a picture up of what the cross stitch pattern looks like what the finished result will look like for the glacier one. And I'll link below the Etsy listing for all the patterns so that you can go check that out if you're interested in also doing matching cross stitch with us, because that would be fun. But it's really cool because I'd never done a cross stitch pattern before. I'd never cross stitched before. I'd done some embroidery, but I'd never cross stitched. And so the pattern is really cool. They tell you exactly what thread to get. Like they tell you the number, the brand and the number of thread to get. And so you just go to a craft store, like we went to a Michael's, and picked out we knew exactly what color of thread to get. So we get all the thread, and then on the pattern, it has like little symbols and colors for like, okay, you need to like stitch this color here. So it's basically like a color by number, like a paint by number, but with cross stitch, which I love. Like I love being told exactly where to put things, and it's like a grid and it's very clearly outlined, and I love it. It's like exactly right up my alley. So yeah, I cross stitch now. Can you believe it? And that's pretty much all I've been working on. Like I said, it's been like 6 weeks and I feel like I should have more. Like, I don't know, I guess I mostly knit this sweater during that time. And this is like a fingering weight sweater, so like maybe that's reasonable. I don't know. I'm not gonna put too much expectation or judgment on myself. I'm just gonna be, I need to break out of that, okay? It's okay that I maybe haven't finished a whole bunch of things since I last recorded, but I'm happy with what I'm working on now. I'm really excited about what's coming up next. I have some acquisitions I'm gonna share. I also have a swatch that I can talk about. So this isn't like a full swatch, but I just started swatching, and I'm probably gonna pull it out because I wanna make sure that I have all the yarn. Like I'm not gonna bind it off and cut it and block it and everything, because I don't want to waste any yarn, because I'm nervous that I won't have enough of one of my yarns. But I am swatching for the Port sweater by Ozetta. And so this was one of the sweater quantities I talked about in my stash in my last episode that I was kind of itching to cast on. The Port sweater is a new pattern by Ozetta that came out just like a couple weeks ago. And Maya and I again are planning to knit matching sweaters, which I'm very excited about. And we both had just been really, really itching to cast this one on. And so as soon as I finish my mom's sweater, I think I'm gonna cast this one on next. But I am using the Surrey alpaca and silk from Grenouille that I showed from my stash last week. This is one of my stash yarns that I bought at the end of the last year, and the colorway is Knocked Music, and it's just stunning. Like, I'm obsessed with dark teal. And I thought a lot about like what yarn I wanted to pair with it, because I knew I wanted to hold another yarn along with it. And especially if I was gonna use it for the Port, it is knit at like a worsted weight gauge, and this is like a lace weight, so I knew I was gonna have to hold something with it. So I thought a lot about it. I considered a couple different options, and I ended up grabbing a ball of Ulysse from Rerum Natura when I was at work, because we carried this yarn at La Mercerie. This is actually the finer weight of Gilliatt, which is what I am using here for my mom's sweater. So these are like basically the same yarn, but this one's a worsted weight and this one is a sport weight. And I thought since Surrey is a little bit of a heavier lace weight, that holding it with sport weight might work out well to result in like a worsted weight for the Port sweater. So I was nervous because this color is like quite a bit lighter than this one, and I was unsure whether I would like that or not, if I would prefer to have something a little closer in color to this one. But I thought I would just go ahead and take a ball of this home and swatch with it, and I love the way that the swatch turned out. So I'll show you a little bit of a close-up here, and I don't know how it will look in the lighting, but it's still nice and dark from the Surrey, but you can see a little bit of that lighter throughout, and I think it results in like I don't know how it will look here, like the lighting or anything, but it results in it looking almost like glowy or like shiny. And there's like subtle variation in the Surrey, which I think is really beautiful too. Sorry, I'm like not holding this in the middle. But I really, really love it. Like I love it a lot more than I expected to. I thought I was gonna want something darker, but I'll show these up close next to each other as well. Really pretty. And I'm loving the way that it looks. So yeah, but to get gauge, I did have to go down 2 needle sizes, which is kind of surprising to me. The pattern calls for a US size 9 needle. And I got gauge on, or close to gauge, that I think will work out with blocking, on a US size 7. So, and I do like the fabric. I think it's gonna be, that's the one thing about using the U-list as well, is since it's so light, I think it'll result in a really nice and light fabric, and the swatch is really nice and light, so I think it'll be really good. And I can put a picture again up here of the sweater so you can see what it looks like and what I'm talking about. It's a really nice oversized pullover with like a tall neck and a really cool drop shoulder detail on the side. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be really fun. So, and I'm in love with these colors. Like this color is so, so pretty. And this color actually is the color that my brother wants for his dad sweater. So I'll just get this color in Gilliatt to knit his, which will probably be next up. So yeah, loving dark teal, excited to cast this on. Let's talk about some acquisitions. So I guess this ball of yarn was technically an acquisition. Also, these needles, I did not buy them myself, but I think I talked about this on the podcast before. I got an interchangeable needle set really early on in my knitting because I started working at a yarn store really early on in my knitting. I worked at a yarn store part-time when I was in college in Norman, Oklahoma. And so I got an interchangeable needle set like really early on, and I just got the one that they carried at the yarn store I worked at when I was in college, and that was the Addies. And so I got the Addy Click interchangeable needle set, and they have served me really, really well. But over time, and like just like trying out different needles over time, I have realized that while I do like the Addies, my preferred needle is the Sauge needles. I really, really love the Sauge needles. I think the tips are really nice, but most of all, I love the cords of the Sauge. So this year I requested for Christmas a interchangeable needle set of Sauges. And I got it. My parents got me the Sauge interchangeable needle set that I'd asked for. I got they have a little bit longer tips than my Addy set, and they also have sizes US 2 through 8, which are definitely the sizes I use the most. I would say I ran into issues a couple of times with my Addy set. I had 4 through 11 for the Addy set, and I would need 2s and 3s quite a bit. And I think maybe that's because I am a loose knitter, and so I would often have to go down a needle size, so I would run into issues needing a 3 a lot. But now I got the Addies and I have 2 through 8, and so I feel that like that set of sizes is going to be really, really useful for me. So this is one of my interchangeable needles, and then I also got a little twig and horn case to put them in. So I have them in here, and I have my Addies also in a different twig and horn case, but I have my needles here. I also have some of my small circumference Sauges in here as well. And yeah, I'm just really happy with that. So that was a really fun acquisition that I was excited about. A couple other yarn acquisitions. I realized I did not ever show on here the day of skein for the Stress Knits Advent. So this is the full skein that I opened on Christmas on December 25th. And I really love it. I feel like these colors are actually, I feel like these colors are perfect for me. It's like yellow, coral, and like this dark teal. Like, how could that be more perfect for me, right? Like, yellow, peach, dark teal. Okay, yes. So I really, really love it. I haven't decided yet how I'm gonna use it. The colorway name is In My Hometown. And it's just on Stacy's favorite base, which is an 80/20 merino nylon sock yarn. And I'll probably use it, like maybe I'll use it for a pair of socks, or maybe I'll use it in a shawl with something else. I'm not sure yet, but I really, really love this color. I think it's perfect. So yeah, that is one. I also, in addition to ordering the Nomadic yarn, self-striping yarn, I ordered some self-striping yarn from Carols in the Snow, or from Tiny Human Knits. Sorry, I just said the colorway name because I just saw it here and read it. The colorway name is Carols in the Snow. I love this colorway. I also feel like it's perfect for me. There again is that dark teal. I'm so obsessed with dark teal right now. You'll see it come up some more in a little bit. But dark teal and like mint and mustard and pink, just really, really pretty. And Laura was so sweet. And she actually sent me, I'm seeing if I can find it here. I know, did I put it, where did I put it? Laura sent me a sock bag along with my yarn because she's just the kindest. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna go find the bag. Okay, I found it. It was downstairs. She also sent me this sock bag along with it, which is just so cute and nice. Like, I can't get over this, actually. Like, how cute is it? And she just, like, I didn't order it or anything. She just sent it because she was just really nice, and that made me so, like, happy and emotional. I don't know. That was really, really sweet. So definitely check out Tiny Human Knits. She has some beautiful, beautiful colors. Honestly, there are several others of her colors that I really want. And if I was a little bit more of a sock knitter, sorry, whew, I went down and up those stairs really quickly. So I need to breathe a little bit. But if I was like a little bit more of a sock knitter, like I knit socks, but I would say I'm primarily a garment knitter. Like my default is to work on my garment knitting projects, like my garment projects. So I do socks a little bit here and there, and like it's a nice travel project. So if I knit socks a little bit more, I would probably do a lot more self-striping, because self-striping is really, really fun to knit. Like I really enjoy it. But there are several other of her colorways that I really want, and I will probably get eventually. But this one was just too beautiful. I had to have, and this is actually a 50-gram main skein and a 20-gram contrast. So perfect for doing the heels, toes, and cuffs. And this one, like, it is technically like a winter, like a holiday colorway, but it doesn't feel too like Christmassy. So I definitely could knit these in like February and it wouldn't bother me at all, because it'll still feel like winter. And it's called Carols in the Snow, and apparently it seems likely that we may have more snow here in Seattle in February. So maybe these will be my snow day socks or something. Or I may wait until like later in the year, around like November or so, to cast these on. But I really love this color too, and can't wait to cast that on too. So that is another acquisition. Another one, which I also talked about in one of my Vlogmas videos, but I wanted to show here as well. This was a gift from Meredith. Meredith Makes on Instagram. And she sent little packages for myself and Jess for organizing the Winter Wishes sock swap, which is just so nice. Jess and I do not pair ourselves with anyone during the swap, because we see like all of the really lovely and incredible things that you all like say in your surveys and stuff, and so we did not feel like it was right, after like reading everyone's information, to like pair ourselves with someone. That's just like not appropriate. But Meredith was like, you guys deserve to have like a winter sock package as well, and so she sent us the most incredible package, each of us. Like Jess got her own package with yarn and a bag and a candle and stuff in it, and I've been using this bag that she sewed as well. It's stunning, like it's beautiful. And the colors, and the inside is graph paper. Like y'all know I love graph paper. Yeah, and she also sent along this yarn with it, which is, I'm realizing I'm not telling you what the yarn is. It's Ashen Bumble from their Succulent collection, and the colorway name is Prickly Pear, and it's just a beautiful color. And she also sent a candle, and I can't get over how sweet that is. Like, it's so nice. So I have that one, and then I also mentioned that my team at La Mercerie, we did a team day at Spincycle up in Bellingham a couple days ago. Like this weekend we went, and I of course had to get some Spincycle yarn as well. So I've been thinking about what I maybe would want to knit, and Maya, who I have talked about I feel like now like 6 times in this video, she also works at La Mercerie, and so was on our little team day as well, and we'd been talking about maybe knitting a Velicore. I believe she's knit one before, but I have never knit one. I haven't knit one yet, and it's a pattern, again, by Andrea Mowry. And I'll try to put a picture up here so that y'all can see what it looks like, but it's really cool. It's mosaic knitting. It has like a main color, and then I think her original, she actually uses different contrast colors and like kind of stripes them, but there's another version where she uses Spincycle as the contrast color, and so it just kind of like slowly shifts color as the contrast color throughout, and so we thought it might be really fun to do a version like that. So I had a couple of different options that I was kind of considering for a main color. I was considering my 2 little t-shirt quantities of Erba that I had from Ovis Etc., which is a sport weight yarn, which I thought would pair really well with Dyed in the Wool from Spincycle, which is also a sport weight. And I walked in to the store and I saw this. So this is something I already had in stash, but I saw these and I was like, I have to. And the way that it pairs with this, it's just like perfect. And I need to go closer so that you guys can actually see the color well, but like, how stunning is that? Like, it's so beautiful. So it's like the colorway is called Shades of Earth, and it's like there's teal and red and pink and mustard and purple. And honestly, I'm normally not a huge purple fan, but I like the way the purple looks in this, and it's just so beautiful. And I feel like with this, it just paired too perfectly. And I am a little bit nervous because I normally don't go for things that are this like saturated. At least like I do sometimes, like I'm doing the dark teal port and everything, which is pretty saturated, but this is like really colorful and variegated and saturated, and I'm nervous that I'm not gonna love it. But I love the yarn, I love the colors, the way that it looks together. I think I'm nervous not that I won't love the garment, but that I won't love wearing it. But I really think I will, because I love the colors so much. Like, I think I will love it, so we'll see. But I got that yarn from Spincycle, and then the last acquisition I have is some yarn for a new design project. So I've been a little bit on pause with design work for a little bit. I had a pretty heavy sprint to the end of the year. I had a couple of patterns that came out right at the end of the year, and so I was wanting to give myself some rest and just take it easy for a little bit after those designs were published. And so I've been doing that, and I'm starting to feel the itch to try something new again, like cast on something new and design again. So I got some yarn. I have an idea in my head, and I won't talk about it in too much detail because I haven't even started yet, so I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I have a project in mind to use Pearl Soho linen quill. So I got a couple skeins. This is the Pale Oats color. And it is a yarn I've used before. I actually knit my Brioche-alicious, which is a shawl by Andrea Mowry. I promise I did not intend for this to be an Andrea Mowry podcast, but I used Pearl Soho linen quill for that project and I really enjoyed working with it. And so I had already in mind what that yarn felt like and how I enjoyed working with it. And so I thought it would be a really good option for this design idea I have, but I wanted a neutral color as like a main color. And then I actually am intending to use my leftovers from my shawl as contrast colors in like different bits and pieces throughout the project as well. So I decided to go ahead and get Pale Oats, which is just this beautiful, perfect, like creamy neutral. And this is, I'll tell you a little bit about linen quill. It's a fingering weight yarn, 50% Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. And I found that when I worked with it on the shawl, it was really nice and light. It has a great feel to it, really good drape. And I'll just give you a little bit of a hint that this is going to be more for like a summer type top. So I thought, I mean, I know it's wool and alpaca, but I thought with a little bit of linen and the nice lightweight drape that this would be a good yarn for like a t-shirt type thing. So I'm hoping to cast that on soon. Maybe once I finish my mom's sweater, I'll cast this on along with Port. And I always like to have like something that is a little bit mindless and easy to work on when I'm doing design stuff too, so that I can go to that. Because like design, like any new designs that I'm working on require a ton of mental effort because everything I'm doing I have to think about because I'm coming up with it myself. So yeah, I'll probably work on this in tandem with Port and hopefully it'll go well, and then I mean, we'll see where it goes from there. But I thought these colors would be really fun together. Like, how fun is that? Yeah. So anyway, that's the last of my acquisitions. I know I mentioned like trying to be a little more cognizant about knitting for my stash, and I feel like I am doing that. I have not bought any sweater quantities. I'm mostly buying yarn to go with yarn that I already have, which I really love the idea of, like working through stuff I have, and even if I have to supplement that a little bit to find something that I love or to use yarn that I already have, I really like that. So I'm loving that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for acquisitions, and that's it for the crafty stuff. I can talk a little bit about like general life stuff and what we've been up to. It's been a really long time, so I don't know what all I should talk about, but I have mentioned this I think in a variety of videos, but if you haven't checked in on those other videos, I went back to Oklahoma for the holidays, visited family, we had a really nice time, and then I got the flu. Flu A I tested positive for just a couple days before my flight home, and so I ended up having to extend my stay in Oklahoma. A couple of my other family members were also sick. Fortunately, Nafis did not get sick, and so he was able to fly home as planned, but I just like did not feel up for flying, and I also really wanted to be responsible and not get on a flight full of people with like knowingly having the flu. I just did not want to give the flu to other people. So I ended up extending my stay a little bit in Oklahoma, and because I felt really, really bad. And I got some bonus, like silver lining, extra time with my family, which was really nice. And then I came back home to Seattle in early January, like January 3rd or so. And then since then, I've just been working on getting back into a routine. I've been back at the store at La Mercerie a couple days a week. I've been working on updating my stash on Ravelry. I wanted to say this too. Thank you so much to everyone who watched my last video and offered suggestions on how to deal with my yarn in my Ravelry stash. You all were so helpful, and honestly, I did not realize there was a section of the, like, I don't know why this did not occur to me. Like, there's basically a header for it. I don't know how I didn't figure this out, but there's like an all used up section on Ravelry where you can add your yarns, and that, like, I feel like just dealt with my problem really, really well. So I'm trying to get everything accounted for. I spent quite a lot of time yesterday going through and like clearing out my yarn that I feel like was partially used or like mostly used up and putting that into the all used up section. And that's basically like I'm characterizing the all used up section of my Ravelry as like a scraps section. So I'll have yarns in there that like may still have a little bit left, but for the most part they're like done. And like I don't want to see them in my stash page because I kind of want to reserve that for like full skeins of yarn that I have projects planned for. I think that just like makes sense in my head a little bit. But anyway, I've been going through that. I've been trying to like, I'm going to try to put all the projects I have planned in my queue as well and put all my stash yarn in. I have like a lot of new yarn that I haven't taken pictures of and put in my stash. I made it through like maybe like March of last year. So like everything I've acquired since then has not been put in my Ravelry stash. So I need to go and put yarns into my Ravelry stash. I went through and I updated a couple of my project pages in Ravelry yesterday as well. And I wanted to like include photos for some that I hadn't, or like more information about the project that I worked on. So that has been a focus for me as well over the last little bit. And I'm gonna continue working on that. Otherwise, just like getting back into a routine. Nafis and I have been cooking again. We've gone on a couple of hikes, which has been really nice, just to get back outside a little bit. The weather honestly has not been too bad. Like I expect for January for it to be raining every day, but it has not been horrible. Like we have actually been able to get outside, take Norman to the park a little bit. Our walks have not been too horrible and rainy, so that's been really good. And then yeah, otherwise we're just like doing our usual cooking. We made, last week was one of my favorite brunches. We did, they were orange cranberry scones and they're so good, and I'm already thinking that I want to make them again, but I'll try to remember to put the recipe below. It was a Sally's Baking Addiction recipe, and we've used several of her recipes in the past and really liked them. So this one was really good too. And oh my gosh, man, I need to make those again. That was really good. But it's been soup season. We've been making lots of soups. We made some sourdough pizza last week, and this week we're making a new soup that my sister sent us. It's like a charred fennel soup, which I also recently discovered. I love fennel. Like I didn't know that I loved fennel, but now I know, and I want to put fennel in everything. So a charred fennel soup. I think tonight we're gonna make like a mustard chicken orzo creamy thing. I don't know exactly what else is in it as well, but that should be really good. What else? I don't know. We've been playing some games together. We've been watching football. I don't know. I've been spinning and knitting and yeah. Norman, hey, you're being noisy. Thank you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like we're just trying to get back into our routine. So continuing with that, and yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be back. I'm not gonna make any promises about regularity or anything, but hopefully I'll be back at least like in a couple weeks to share some updates. Maybe I'll record again once I finish my mom's sweater. That can be like a good benchmark. Once I finish that sweater and cast on a couple new things, I will check back in and share with y'all how it's been going. So I really appreciate you tuning in, and I would love to hear how y'all are doing and how the start to the year has been going for you. And yeah, I hope you do lots of knitting and watch lots of baseball, even though baseball's not happening. And I still say this, even though this podcast isn't even a little bit about baseball anymore, but I'll continue to say it. And I hope you have a great week. Bye.